I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me, MagsWest. It's a pleasure to be here in Vancouver. I normally live and work in Portland, Oregon, which has a number of food carts that are similar to your food carts, but nothing is going to match the Korean fried chicken I had yesterday for lunch. So again, thank you for having me, MagsWest, and I'm really excited to be here this morning to talk about social media, but not really. We're going to talk about actually membership models and how we can sustain ourselves in a world where Facebook really doesn't care about us. And I think, who here thinks that Facebook deeply cares about you? No one, perfect, yeah. I think they would really like us to think that they're invested in our social interactions, but ultimately I think they're just one of the best platforms for advertisement and for advertisers out there, and that really doesn't include independent media. So this talk is really going to be about how we can fund our media organizations at the synthesis of both engagement, which is, in my mind, revenue and distribution, as well as editorial, which is obviously producing content, but also thinking about what a community needs. And we've done quite a bit of that thinking at Bitch Media for the last couple of years. I'm the publisher at Bitch, and I actually started this work coming from a political organizing background and thinking about how we can use theory of change models to also fund media models that are similar, that have some sort of stake in the world about how we think things should be different. So that's a little about me, but let's talk about Bitch Media. Did you just say bitch? Yeah. So this is something I think that's pretty alarming to people, is that sometimes if I'm like on an airplane, for example, people say, like, we get into a conversation, people will say, okay, but who do you work for? What do you do? And I work for Bitch Media, and we are the feminist response to pop culture. We were founded in 1996, and we are really focused on encouraging and engaging in this conversation about how pop culture can be better and mainstream media can be better through a feminist lens. It's something that we started doing right off the bat with a zine that was printed out of like a Kinko's, essentially, and distributed out of the back of a station wagon. There were 300 copies in our first print run, and then a few years later, 5 years later, there were 35,000 copies being distributed. So Bitch started as a magazine, and now we have multi-platform content that's distributed, of course, using the social web, but also on newsstands, via podcasts. We have podcasts every week, Back Talk and Propaganda, and we have daily online analysis as well. One thing I won't talk about much today, but it's actually very, very important to our model, is we have a program called Bitch on Campus, which is for students and educators, where we kind of essentially go to all different universities and conferences around the world and talk about what we do, which is media literacy, feminism, pop culture, mainstream media, all that stuff. This week, our founder's actually in Switzerland and Germany discussing this kind of stuff as well. So that's a part of what we do, but I won't talk much about it today. I don't have a remote, so I'm just going to hit the space bar a couple times. So how did Bitch get here? You can't read any of these words, but that doesn't matter because there's these illustrations. That's totally fine. So we've been around since 1996. 1995 is when the three co-founders had their idea about what we should be. But I would say that there are two key moments in our history that have made it possible for us to be here today. In 1995, our co-founders decided to literally call us Bitch, which now that everybody knows about Bitch Media, like, you're not going to forget probably that you know that something exists called Bitch, because it's a curse word. You don't just like get it out there that often. But we did it. The co-founders did it because they wanted to reclaim the idea that any woman who was outspoken and independent and had expressed an opinion was called a bitch. So we're reclaiming that. We're saying, actually, you know what? That's a good thing. Go ahead, call me that, and then let's put our opinions about what that is or what kinds of people that we are into a magazine. And then from there, we did all these other things that you can kind of see, the station wagon distribution. We got an award in 2001 from UTNY. We celebrated 10 years and put out an anthology in 2006. And we moved ourselves from San Francisco up to Portland in 2007. We actually moved ourselves to Portland because our staff needed health care, and we couldn't afford to live in San Francisco anymore. So, we're very independent in every sense of the word, and we just kind of make choices that are good for our organization as well as we think for our readers. One thing I don't want to skip over, though, is that we became a nonprofit in 2001. So Bitch is a nonprofit registered in the United States, 501c3, et cetera. But the second most important moment, and I would argue one of the reasons that, actually probably the central reason that we still exist today, is in 2008 we started a sustaining membership program, and we named it the B-Hive. And does anybody here have a sustaining membership program? You're working on it? Yeah. So in 2008, we decided that, first of all, Bitch almost closed our doors because we couldn't keep up with the print costs and the mailing costs of our readership, of our print distribution. We just had these cyclical cycles where we had all these huge expenses, and then we had to pay for these huge expenses with deferred revenue, et cetera. The people that are in here who pay for stuff are going to hear that and think, yes, I totally understand. And so we started a sustaining membership program. We called it the B-Hive because we thought, you know what, we have to have more sustainable income, and we think our readers care enough to invest in us, like $10 a month, $5 a month, all that stuff. And so that's really what we're going to talk about today. But here we are in 2017 at the end of the road, and we have all of our podcasts. We've kind of moved on. And I think the question that I really want to answer is, like, how do we pay for something called Bitch, right? Like, cool, you're called Bitch Media. Is that something that like old white men like want to invest in? The answer is actually yes, some. Okay, like let's not just paint a broad brush, but not all. And it's certainly not something that you have, for example, like Coca-Cola coming to us every day and saying you're the brand that we want to care about. And maybe now that feminism is cool, right? You see all of this like marketplace feminism, but not before. And so we decided that we had to fund our organization independently, and for that to be really meaningful to us, that meant to fund our organization from the readers that care about us, and then for other organizations who strongly identify with our work and feel like it's part of their own identity. And a huge key of that, which is I don't think something that newsrooms are really that familiar with, is listening to our communities and treating our readers like they're experts about issues that we might want to care about. And I think that's like a conversation that's coming up more and more now, which is like maybe our community, maybe all the decisions we make in editorial shouldn't just be made by our editors or our writers. Maybe we should be asking our community what they care about. And I think that's a key. That mutuality is going to be key here. But the biggest point is we certainly do not fund our media from Facebook. Does anybody here fund their media from Facebook? Are you like, Facebook's where it's at? No, of course not. Of course not. But Facebook would like you to think that. So let's just get this out of the way first. Facebook, it doesn't care about you. It doesn't care about your publisher. Does anybody here work for BuzzFeed? No, because Facebook might care about BuzzFeed a little bit. So this quote just came up earlier this week, and it's another think piece on essentially like how instant articles don't matter or don't really matter to publishers, and there's not this like give and take. If you're a publisher who's built up a large audience based on your Facebook feed, this new Explore feature means trouble. You're no longer assured a place in the main news feed, which is by far the social network's most prominent real estate. Have people heard about this Explore thing that's happening? No, should I explain it really quickly? So Facebook this week released, or actually I think earlier, like a couple weeks ago, released a new feature in the news feed that's called Explore. And what it is it's an adjacent news feed. And it's taking all non-promoted publishers' content and jamming it into that news feed. And what it's saying essentially to the public is that it wants to centralize those relationships that Facebook users have with each other. So you're going to see like a lot of baby pictures if you're my age. You're going to see a lot of like graduation pictures. You're going to see a lot of feelings again, kind of what Facebook was in 2004 when it first launched. But you're not going to see a lot of stuff from publishers, right? And so Facebook's moving all the publisher clicks and views that you see into its own newsfeed, where people kind of have to go out of the way to see them. My biggest parallel there would be the Google inbox, Gmail inbox. Do people have those 3 tabs, promotions tab? So I'm thinking that the Explore feed is going to be like the promotions tab. Essentially what happens here, though, is that they're going to screw over publishers. The only way you can get into the regular news feed is to pay for that content to be promoted. So again, Facebook's putting a premium, on publishers who can pay to be there. So that certainly doesn't include Bitch. We do pay a little bit, but we definitely do not pay like BuzzFeed pays, the New York Times, et cetera. At best, I'm just going to say this, Facebook's a frenemy, because we all need Facebook, right? They're not like an enemy to us, but they're not going to really help us in the long run. Okay, well, let's just get this out of the way. No, Facebook really doesn't care about you. So this is a recent study was published, and I read Neiman Labs, which is the Harvard newsletter for independent media that kind of releases new information on a weekly basis. And Facebook was responsible for an average of 7% of digital revenue, with a median of just 3% across all of revenue programs. A quarter of publishers who were surveyed said that they received no direct revenue from Facebook at all. This is from an article that I think is so funny. Are publishers making money on Facebook? Question mark, not really. I mean, obviously. And this was published last month. And this data is from the World Association of Newspapers and News Publishers, so it's good data. So to me, I was just thinking about this the other day. a question we should all be asking ourselves is, okay, so what happens if Facebook disappears tomorrow? What happens to our organizations if Facebook disappears tomorrow? What will your distribution look like? What will your engagement model look like? What will your revenue look like? And I think we should start asking ourselves this question. At Bitch, we have 5 significant revenue streams. We have Bitch on Campus, which I talked about earlier, and that brings in a very small portion of our budget. And that's that's for students and educators. Speakers go to campuses, give talks, give workshops, et cetera. We have sponsorship, which is advertising dollars. Who here has an advertising program at their organization? Okay. Okay, so yeah, it's a pretty standard thing for media organizations. At Bitch, we have to agree that the sponsor that comes into our organization is going to forward our mission and values. We're the feminist response to pop culture. We don't want to have, for example, like the Man Show. Does everybody remember the Man Show on MTV? Wow, I can't believe that just came to my brain. That's embarrassing. We don't want to have the Man Show like promoting work through Bitch, because our readers would see a conflict there. They would say, well, you're doing this, but you're advertising this other thing. We don't see how that forwards your vision in the world. So our sponsorship program brings in, I would say, probably between 6 and 8% of our annual budget. It's very small. We have subscriptions, which is your traditional model of just buying a magazine subscription. You pay $24.95 right now. You get 4 issues over time. It's a deferred revenue stream for the organization. Number 2 is that we accept one-time donations. So that's essentially, you have donors who want to give you $5. Great, thanks for your $5. It's really important to us. And finally, we have our recurring membership program called the B-Hive. And this is, I would argue, the only reason that Bitch Media still exists. Our B-Hive program is something that we decided to invest in because 75% of our readers make $50,000 a year or less. And so you're not looking at a readership that is going to just throw millions of dollars at you and you're going to be able to innovate and pivot to video and do all these things. No. We have to look at our collective vision for the organization and ask ourselves, how can we fund that in a way that reflects our readership? We really know our community, so what can we do that's going to reflect our community as well in our financial choices? And that brings me to this point, which is that the B-Hive centers one thing. The B-Hive, again, is our sustaining membership program that I just brought up. Community. And community to me is a really interesting word in independent media and all media, because how many organizations talk about their audiences? How many outlets talk about audience? Everybody talks about audience, right? You're the media outlet, and then you have an audience that you communicate with. You're telling them what that's about. There are a lot of organizations out there that refer to their audience as readers or listeners. But there's not a lot of exchange language where we say you're as valuable to us as we are to you. And so at Bitch, we emphasize community for that reason, because of something that we found out just a couple years ago, which was really important to us. When readers first arrive at Bitch Media, we ask them what they're looking for when they found us, because we want to know, like, why are you here? How'd you find us? Why are you here? And the most important thing is, what are you looking for? The way that we do that, which might be something that you have a question about, might not be, but I'm going to tell you either way, is we have an email that goes out when someone joins our email list, and it says, hey, now that you're here, we're happy to have you, but you should know these 4 things about us. And so right away, we establish this idea about our media organization, that is, there are 4 critical things you should know about us if you're going to participate in our community. The first one is that we do this thing that's important, moving up the engagement ladder or whatever. The second thing is that we want to hear from you. We want to know what you think. We want this to be a conversation. And so we ask people to take a 2-question survey as soon as they arrive at Bitch. And 84% of readers tell us that they want one thing, which was incredibly surprising to us. It's not what I thought it was going to be. A feminist community. Like, what? A community? Like, when I think about a community, I think about organizations that are putting out a sense of identity, that have some sort of congregation, that are assembling in your local community, that offer you something more than just media. And so I was thinking people would maybe want better reviews. They would want more analysis. They would be asking for us to put out more video. But 84% of readers tell us that they want a feminist community. And as soon as we found that out, we had to make a change, because we knew immediately that our readers were more invested in a sense of identity and place at Bitch Media than we were giving them. So for the last 2 years, we decided to center that desire for community and sustainability in all of our financial decisions. And I don't know if anybody noticed this, but I just kind of threw in sustainability out of nowhere. That's because Marketing and fundraising is incredibly exhausting. I don't know if people feel me on that, but it is. It's very tiring. At Bitch, we only have 13 people on staff, most of whom are editors and content producers. We do not have a development director. We do not have a marketing director. We do not have a dedicated staff that thinks of themselves as only there to provide revenue for everybody else. We don't sell ads. We don't. So sustainability, financial sustainability is absolutely key. So we did this for 2 years. We started making a choice, and here's what happened to our revenue streams. Okay, this is exciting to me. I just plotted this out pretty recently. I've known these numbers for a long time, but essentially everybody sees this blue line, right? This is our membership program. And these are all of our other revenue streams. The other revenue streams include subscriptions, which is paying one price at one time for something that you distribute over the course of time. I don't think it's a great model. The other sponsorship, that's our ad revenue, that's here, that's this line. Subscriptions are here. Newsstand, we don't ignore these traditional things, we just don't invest in them. So we are on the newsstand, we're here in Canada, we're on the newsstand in the United States, and we have direct retail locations all over the world. Here's our newsstand. It's been pretty flat since 2011, right? And then Bitch on Campus, which is a program we launched in 2013, but brings in about the same amount of money as Newsstand. But what happened that really mattered was our B-Hive program. Our B-Hive program is made up of about 5,000 people right now who give an average of $10.61 a month. That averages to, if you do quick math in your head, about $50,000 a month. And that's a huge deal to us because it compounds over time. If you can hang on to that member, you get one member here, and the next month you add another member, you're obviously going to be doubling your revenue over time. And so if you keep investing in the sustaining model and you keep investing in that relationship with that member who sees themselves as part of your community, it results in incredible amounts of revenue over time. Now, I'm going to be honest here. This is 2018, which hasn't happened yet, but these are our projections for next year. So this is where we are in 2017. This is going to be my favorite slide this whole time. This is a picture of me playing hockey in college because A, it's your national sport, and then B, what we just saw in that membership program's revenue is actually what's known as a hockey stick curve. And how often do you see a hockey stick curve related to revenue at an independent, feminist media organization? 0 times, once. You're seeing it here. Maybe if we were talking about MTV in the 90s, maybe if we're talking about Upworthy. Does everybody know Upworthy here? Yeah, remember the curiosity gap? Where every headline was like, guess what this person does? And then you had to click on it to find out. That's a curiosity gap. That's why they saw explosive growth. And so and I did play hockey in college. That's not just a doctored image. Way to make the most out of ice and snow, Canada. That's all I can say. Good with that. But the thing about sustaining membership programs that come back to our sense of identity is that they're at the intersection of community and sustainability, right? Like they're offering something that's identity and mutuality to our readers, to our members, and they're offering financial stability to the organization. So actually, they're this thing that really sits at kind of the common interest of both your readers and your organization. And I think we need to be leveraging that a little bit more. At Bitch, when you become a member, you receive some stuff, which is really cool. You get a subscription to the magazine, you get exclusive content, but you also get things that I think are really important that our members will not tell you are important. You get a mug. You get literally a mug that has a Bitch Media crest on it. You get a sticker. You get some pencils that say like witty phrases like outsmart the patriarchy. But you get these little symbols of identity that you can you get a tote bag that you can take with you to a grocery store. And so it really makes you feel like you have this symbol that is a reminder of this community that you're part of that harnesses these ideas, this idea that pop culture can be better if feminism is a part of it, and pop culture in turn will change the world. That's a huge idea, and by the way, that's our theory of change, which is really important to all of this. So here's the really cool thing that I think is going to be important. In the last 2 years, we've more than doubled our budget without adding an additional fundraiser or any additional fundraisers or marketing staff. So we have only invested in our editorial side. And if you look here, this is our 2018 projections for the B-Hive, right? This blue graph. This is our sustaining revenue. And in 2018, we expect that our sustaining revenue will raise almost as much money as we raised across all programs in 2016. So this is our overall budget, and this is our B-Hive revenue as a percent of the overall budget. And so these initial investments in this program are worth so much money over time as long as you continue to retain those members. So you have to deliver on your promise. It's not like set it and forget it. What is that for, set it and forget it? Yes, thank you. It's not a slow cooker. Membership's not a slow cooker, right? You have to be active. You have to be in the kitchen. You have to participate. It's really important. And then for all the editors in the room, it's a funding program that really allows you, your organization, to invest in content. So often what you see is like, let's hire another salesperson to sell more ads. Let's hire another development director to develop relationships. But those people are really paying for themselves, and then they're on a hamster wheel. This is a program that allows you to make investments somewhere else, because it kind of is, something that generates over time. So in order to do this, we've done 2 key things in the last 12 months to really bolster our program. So we have a director of community, we hired a director of community, and we hired a senior engagement editor. Who here has a director of community at their media organization? Nice, you have a director of community, that's awesome. And who here has engagement staff on their team? Okay, so these 2 words, have people noticed like this proliferation of the term of engagement at media organizations, what that means, et cetera? At Bitch, that means something different than it does at most media organizations. But these people have been absolutely key to those 2 positions, to this concept of Bitch. And the one thing that I'll say for most independent media organizations that have like a niche audience like ours is that when we talk about scalability, we need to be talking about deepening relationships with our current audience, not expanding our net. So at Bitch, we know we're only ever going to have, right now we reach 6 million people a year, right? That's pretty good for us. We can probably reach more. But what's more important to us over the long term is deepening the relationships with people that we already have in our network. So that's super important. Our director of community focused on developing systems and programs that encourage mutuality and depth in those relationships. We just started talking about that a little bit. But the other thing that she does, Soraya Membreno is our director of community, is that she offers vulnerability from the position of a media organization, and she establishes trust from our end of the bargain. So when we're not certain about something, we don't just talk about it at our editorial staff, we don't just talk about it at an engagement meeting, we write an email and we send it to our readers. So we basically say, hey, we're not sure about this and we don't know if we're gonna be sure about this. What do you think? Or we offer that little bit of vulnerability because that's how you establish relationships and trusting relationships with people who are part of your community, is you present your humanity to them. And of course, we're all humans that make this media. This card that you see, I'm in the B-Hive because, is so important. And I'll get into that later. But it is so important to our organization. It's something that we just launched. This is our magazine back here. And this little card is kind of like a really thick ply card that all B-Hive members get once they join the B-Hive. Second person that's really important is our senior engagement editor. This is Dahlia Grossman-Heinz. That's her cat, Howard. You all don't watch Feminist Snack Break yet, but you should. It's at 10 a.m. Pacific time on Wednesday mornings, and it's about a 45-minute long program. And Dahlia, who is absolutely brilliant and incredibly engaging, hosts it. This is her house. This is a corner of her house. And Howard, she sprays catnip spray all over this bed here so that Howard will sit there. This is he will sit there the whole time. And he does. He sits there the whole time. And then, of course, this is a filter. This is not their actual outfit. And Facebook actually won't put this glasses and tie on Howard as well. We photoshopped it on there for this picture. But this program is extremely important. Feminist Snack Break is a place where, who here uses Facebook Live with their organization? Okay. So what we realized about Facebook Live is that it's not just about going live, it's also about creating the expectation for when you're gonna go live. You have to have a routine. You cannot just go live randomly and think, hey, this is gonna work out. Create a routine that your readers can count on. This is like a theory that is as old as time. Make sure people can expect to see you. And every week, we get anywhere between 10,000 and 15,000 views on this video. For Bitch, that's really, really good. There are some organizations out there, like I'll watch when Jezebel, does anybody here read Jezebel? Yeah, Jezebel has a much wider audience. They're corporate funded. We have more watchers on Feminist Snack Break on our Facebook Live feed than they do. And it's because Dahlia's routine and she's deepening relationships. But the most important thing that she does is she offers a place where she's communicating on a personal level with our readers, but they're communicating with each other in the stream. That, where they are talking to each other about what Dahlia is saying and everyone can see it, that is absolutely key. Bye, Howard and Dahlia. See you on Wednesday at 10 a.m. next week, right? Everybody's going to dial in. So this is what I'm getting into, that it's not enough just to develop our Bitch reader relationships, us, the organization, with our readers, the people. Our readers need to see each other too. Like, how often do you have somebody standing up there saying something to you like, this thing's really popular, but that person works for the organization? You're like, it's like, really, is Red Bull that good? I don't know. But when you see other people drinking Red Bull and ordering Red Bull and vodka at the bar, you think, I'm gonna try that. And then if you're me, you think, I'm never trying that again. But it is absolutely essential to have those readers seeing each other as well. And that is where this card comes in. So remember that card I showed you before? This is literally just our Instagram feed. So this is when you look at a tag, when you look at this tag, get in the Hive, you will see probably dozens of people who take this card and they photograph it because we asked them to, and then they check off a box, because what you see in those little boxes are questions about how you fit into our community. They're about identity. Those boxes say the following: I'm in the B-Hive because A, I'm outsmarting the patriarchy. B, my feminism is not for sale, which is a nod towards corporate-funded feminist stuff. 3, I like my media independent. 4, my future is feminist. 5, bitches get shit done. We had to put that in there. People say it to us all the time. We just had to. And then 6, all of the above. And people love this card. And then they hashtag it, and then we retweet it. And then we put it on Instagram, or we show people on Instagram. We like it ourselves. What's happening here is that our community is creating relationships with each other, and they're offered this point of validation, right? It's not just us talking about how great bitch media is or how important the B-Hive is. It's them talking to each other. Look at that chihuahua. That's so nice. Thank you. We did have a spread in our last issue called The Bitch is a Bitch. I have a German Shepherd. She was the star. Her name's Mariah Carey. Let's move on. So that's the thing, is you have to ask your members to guide the conversation for you about membership, right? And then you have to amplify those conversations. Again, this comes to the trust that your community and your outlet is trusting your community and it matters, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This just literally, I don't know if you can see this timestamp, but these things come up all the time. This just happened a few days ago. This is not just like the one time it happened on Twitter and I found it. No, this happened earlier this week. We love seeing people, they love seeing each other. But here's the thing. Engaging in conversations, asking questions, responding to feedback isn't just at the core of our mission. Remember, our mission is to engage and encourage a feminist response pop culture. It also makes our readers more likely to become members. And like, I'm the publisher, so I really care about finances. Like, we have to figure out how we're gonna pay for this stuff. I care about that. And the best part is that we can prove it. We have data to prove it. In 2016, which was last year, I can't believe that 2016 was last year. If you're with me, please raise your hand. Thank you. Yeah, especially, I'm an American, so I mean, it's terrible. But in 2016, we won an innovation grant from the Institute for Nonprofit News to do a test on whether or not a specific type of engagement would lead to higher rates of conversion to membership. So we wanted to know, essentially, if readers asking us questions and us caring and doing something about it would mean that they would actually care about us more in a financial way. This project, by the way, was funded by the Knight Foundation and the Democracy Fund. And those are two huge stakeholders in the United States who are interested in restoring trust in democracy. And so you can see that this mutuality and these relationships are what everyone's thinking about when it comes to media. Of course, fake news, which I don't know if anybody's noticed, but Facebook calls it false news. I don't know if that's like a power grab. It's called fake news, guys, come on. Anyway, these questions are at the center of how we're gonna restore our democracy if we can do it. So raise your hand if you've heard of a new tool called Hearken. Yes, okay, awesome. And yeah, of course you have. So Hearken is the tool that we were able to test. And what Hearken does is it is essentially a text box on your website, and readers can type in their question for you. They could say something like, what are Beyonce's twins' names? Why did she decide to name them that? How's Blue Ivy doing, right? At send. And that goes directly into our Slack channel, and our editors can see it. And our editors would maybe check a box, and they would say, yeah, actually that question's relevant, and we're gonna write a story about it. And what Hearken told us is that people will spend a longer time reading a story that's generated by a reader question, okay? And what we decided was, okay, if someone's gonna spend longer on our site, then we know that they're more likely to return, that's Chartbeat data. And if they're more likely to return, we know that returning visitors are more likely to convert to paying members. So, by extension, people asking us questions and us publishing those articles is going to be good for our business model. So we tested it. We did it for a year. It was really easy. I'm not kidding. It was literally really easy, and it was good for us. When readers ask questions and engage, this is specifically through Hearken, right? I'm not talking about Facebook. I'm talking about Hearken. This is specific to this platform. They were 7 times more likely to convert to membership. 700% more likely. That's like That's a huge, 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 huge gap. And so the question becomes, why wouldn't you engage in these conversations with your community? Why wouldn't you take reader questions and publish on reader questions? And the answer is that you should. You really should. And you don't just have to, my theory is that you don't just have to use Harkin to do this stuff. You can use a Google Doc, you can embed in a form on your site, but you have to close the loop of reader engagement. You have to publish those stories. You have to be in conversation with your community, and you have to show them that you're listening to them. So that all comes back to membership, right? Because this project helped us build our membership program, not by a huge margin because we could only test people that ask questions, but it showed us that our theory matters about how you can sustain media organizations. And I think what's really important is coming up next, is that membership is everywhere. All of these companies, and many of them which are for-profits, which don't even get me into, have membership programs. Slate has a membership program. Do people know that? Yeah, Slate has a membership program. The Atlantic has a membership program. The Guardian has a membership program. ProPublica, Talking Points Memo, The Nation, all of these organizations understand how powerful this is. Some of them have like a one-time price that you can pay like $120 for a year. That's actually The Atlantic. But what I would recommend is that you set it, and don't forget it, but that you allow people to pay over time, because that is sustained revenue that offers a reminder to people. That $10 coming out of your checking account every month, I feel like I'm on NPR right now. Anyway, $10 coming out of your checking account every month is a reminder that you care about that organization. Every single month. It's doing work for you. Don't do a one-time fee. Ask for people for a little bit over time. And now, this is hilarious to me. So yesterday I was like, oh, maybe I'll consider joining the Atlantic's membership program just to see what they're doing. And so I go on their site, member, blah, 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 give them a fake email address, whatever. I noticed 3 things right away. A, they remarketed me on Facebook. They're using a data graph poll, whatever. But here's the most important thing to me. Look at what their question is about becoming a member. Look at the way that they position this. Tell us what you're interested in, because we're listening to you. So the Atlantic gets it, right? They know that if we tell you we are listening and we start this conversation with you right away, it's going to mean that you care more about us in the long run. But here's the second thing that I think is really important. This is a sponsored post, so that the only reason I saw it is because the Atlantic paid for me to see it in my Facebook feed, right? We're going back to how Facebook doesn't really care about us. And then the third thing is the like ratio. How many likes do you all think followers on Facebook do you think the Atlantic has? Just wild guess. Yeah, the wild guess of no idea is great. 2.3 million. They have 2.3 million followers on Facebook. How many likes does this post have? 49! I could get 49 if I put like a picture of my dog Mariah Carey in the Atlantic's Facebook feed, right? I would get more than that. And so this just reestablishes that if you want to do the things that matter most to your organization, you're never going to be able to count on Facebook to do it, right? So let's not totally forget about Facebook, but let's start decentering Facebook in terms of the way that we think about distribution and revenue. And here's the last thing. This is the kicker. Facebook, it wants to be us. So this is the final quote that I think we should all hang on to. Facebook is now heavily promoting its groups product, hoping that small, intentional online communities, rather than posts to the vast sea of Facebook friends, will motivate people to share more. And that is from the same article that came out of the revenue generation problem earlier. Why is Facebook terrifying publishers with a new test, which is the Explore feed? So I hope that this conversation has kind of opened up the conversation that you're all having at your organizations about how you're funding your work, who you're hiring, and why you're making those investments. So many organizations will have something called like Curious Chicago, for example, and they do a whole, essentially it's a vertical that's like, these are reader questions and we're answering them. For Bitch, because our community is global and mostly based in North America, we just put a little tagline at the top of the story. And we created like a little symbol that would show people, that would indicate readers, hey, this was generated by a reader question, you can ask a question too. So yeah, we revealed that right away. We don't offer sponsorship for our Facebook Live program. It's in part because it's only a year old and we want to generate more depth with those relationships before we offer a sponsorship for it. But also in part because we're going to treat it like, I think, like an NPR relationship. So for our last membership campaign, which was in September, I joined Dahlia on Facebook Live. And I never joined Dahlia. I mean, seriously, I never joined her. Thank God. I really don't want to be on Facebook Live every Wednesday at 10 a.m. But I asked our members, the people that have been watching this for almost 52 weeks. And you know what? I said, hey, we're doing this campaign. It's really important. I showed them the mug, showed them the little card. Dahlia joined in. We had a good time. We saw immediate conversions to membership. So we are not trying to monetize it through ads and sponsorship. We're monetizing it through our engagement model. Maybe we'll have an advertiser who we care about who's part of our sponsorship program that we think is a good fit, but my hunch is that we won't do that. Essentially what we're doing is what we do in all of our communications with Facebook is we know that the ultimate question we're asking is how can we control the communication that we have with people on Facebook. So as soon as they come to our site, there's a pop-up, which is Facebook classifies as an interstitial, asking people to join our email list, because then we can communicate when we can control when we communicate. Facebook is they punish us for having that interstitial because Facebook doesn't want us to make Facebook's site any less sticky. They want us to rely on them more to communicate, but we know that over time collecting that email address is going to be the only way we can reliably communicate with that person. And so that's what we do. Yeah, I think it's a double-edged sword. We're going to use Facebook for all that it's worth for as long as we possibly can, but ultimately it's about getting an email address for us so that we can start our engagement model. The readers asking questions, telling us what they're thinking about, and all that stuff. Our core action at Bitch is really joining our email list because we know that that's where people feel most invested in and convert. We're still answering that question. I think it changes based on what our mission is. So right now, if we're pivoting away from our distribution on Facebook, I think the two things that are really important, that will be very important for us next year in terms of continuing the sense of identity and community are our podcasts, Feminist Snack Break, and our print magazine. So we're actually working through a redesign right now, but we're investing in products that feel more personal and that can be distributed and feel physical to people like the magazine. Yeah, so there's only 2 questions on that survey. The first one is a multiple choice question with a randomized selection. So the order is always randomized, and also an open-ended part. Yeah, so that, it's, a classic survey. It has like 13 options that include like, I came for diverse feminist perspectives, cultural analysis, music reviews, movie reviews, all that kind of typical stuff. And so a feminist community we just kind of like threw in there. And I was like, what is this? This is gold. And the second question is, what is the most important issue you care about this week? And so people will tell us, and if we're not already covering that and it really makes sense for us, we'll do it. A print subscriber receives 4 issues of Bitch Magazine. We're quarterly. It's an 80-page quarterly, and they get that delivered to their door just like a subscription. A B-Hive member would pay, let's say, $8 a month. That's our most popular level, by the way, and I would write that down because figuring out what the offering is and what the dollar amount is that people are willing to convert for is really important. So our most popular level at $8 a month, people will receive that subscription as if they were a subscriber, but they will receive that subscription until their membership lapses, which might be when their credit card expires, it might be when they move, et cetera, something changes with their payment. But they also receive a mug, like a drinkable mug. I think you probably saw that there. They receive a sticker that says, like, I'm a member of the B-Hive, and it has all these little bees on it that we humanized. I mean, they're adorable, I guess. They receive a little notebook, and they receive like premium content. So we have an email that goes out every month called Listen Bitch, which includes I really think that's a good name for that email though. Listen Bitch, which is our podcast roundup and includes all of our music reviews. So there's a couple of premium content things in there, but there's also physical things that I think matter a lot. Facebook's targeted advertising programs are so much better than what Google can even offer that there's almost no reason not to invest in Facebook if you're going to invest in advertising versus AdSense with Google, which is a little bit more randomized. That's my sense. I think that we do have to consider what Facebook is doing, but I think Facebook's also afraid, right? Because if their product becomes less relevant, they know that media is important to what makes their product relevant to us. And so it's really a delicate dance. I think that they're never going to be able to completely get rid of media of publishers in their feed. And they're also never going to be able to get rid of independent publishers because the independent publishers are what really matter in terms of identity and creating community within your feed, right? I don't really care. Like the New York Times can publish all it wants. I'm going to get that print delivered to my doorstep on every Sunday. But when I'm looking at my social feed, I want to see what my friends care about, and a lot of that is going to be independent media because it's closer to our identities, geographically, ideologically, et cetera. We spent $0 on Facebook ads in 2016, and we spend right now, or we're in 2017 now, yeah. So in September, we started spending like a couple $100s on Facebook ads a month. And I can't say that it matters. I think what we can do is be super targeted, like you saw that Atlantic ad. We might do more of that. But in terms of promoting content, what we see go viral really has less to do with whether we're promoted or not, and more if we hit a nerve with our community. It's never ending. So if your credit card expires in 2020, ideally we would bill you until 2020. And that's something we're very open with, which is that this is a monthly donation. You can cancel it or change it at any time. And members can, they can manipulate their memberships on a membership page on our site. So you just log in, you can pause your membership, change it, et cetera. One challenge of membership is that you do have to really pay attention to attrition. Attrition is a huge thing. We do have a data and operational manager who's looking at how we can create better systems on the back end that make it so that people aren't failing out of our B-Hive. We have a very small rate of drop off every month, but we do have to pay attention to that, and we are constantly acquiring new members. Acquiring members takes a little bit more work than acquiring subscribers, but it's worth way more over time. Our attrition rate is like 3% per month, right? That's kind of big, except then there's also our acquisition rate per month. And so what we're trying to do is have every year, starting from a couple years ago, what we try to do is on a quarterly basis add about 400 new members a quarter. And that's going to result into about 10,000 new dollars, recurring dollars, a year, which is 120,000 in the first year, and 240,000 in the second year, and 360,000 in the third year. And so it just compounds over time. We use the same kind of data processors that like Netflix uses. Does anybody have Netflix? I can't believe I just said that. Who doesn't have Netflix? Okay. But did you ever notice that even if you move or your card changes, somehow Netflix keeps billing you? Like, I don't know if people know this, but there are things called account updaters out there that will work, your billing system will work with your credit card processor to find out what your new expiration date is, and you're never part of the conversation, right? And so there are all kinds of tools you can use on the back end to make sure that your membership program is as sticky as possible. So we created a product that we thought people wanted. We decided to do something that was also routine. I thought to myself, when would I like to receive an email from an organization that I like and have time to listen to? And for me at that time, which was like 4 years ago, it was Saturday mornings at 7 a.m. So when I wake up on Saturday morning, I want to see the top 9 stories from Bitch Media this week. And we created something called the Weekly Reader. And so we ask people when they come to our site, hey, now that you're here, you may have liked that story. Sign up for the Weekly Reader and you'll get 9 more like it every Saturday morning. It's like, it's not the smartest thing you've ever heard. Everybody's doing it, but it creates a routine and expectation. And so when people come to our site, they sign up for the Weekly Reader. And when they sign up for the Weekly Reader, they also are allowing us to send random campaign emails sometimes. But from that Weekly Reader list, we try to convert them into daily readers with On Our Radar, which is something that we send out Monday through Friday and is like the news of the world through our feminist lens. So On Our Radar is also an email Monday through Friday, and that allows us to boost stories from our partners that we think matter and our own work. So we just keep trying to make Bitch more a part of your daily routine using email as that leverage, because we know that email converts really high. So our On Our Radar email is literally content that we were already publishing on our website, and we just put it in email. And the Weekly Reader is like whatever your share copy is on Facebook, just blurbed into just a roundup. And our director of community, by the way, the person that is pivotal in all of this, writes a little note at the top of the Weekly Reader. A couple months ago when the hurricane was hitting Miami, Soraya, whose family lives in Miami, shared a story about what the coverage meant to her and her family. And so we're trying, again, to synthesize the personal with that larger media picture. Email is really hard. Like I said that I think I shared this with you all, but I came from political organizing, digital political organizing. One of my first jobs was working at Howard Dean's PAC. And Howard Dean revolutionized like that digital relationship, right? And we saw all kinds of income come in from email. But over time, yeah, we've been crowded out a little bit. I think the most important thing is to make sure you're delivering a valuable thing to people who want it. And that's why we created the Weekly Reader, which really feels like a product that informs people and makes them feel like they're part of our community. But it's also only opt-in. Like our Weekly Reader, you have to ask to receive that. And then On Our Radar, you have to ask to receive that on a daily basis. So the more intense the relationship, the more deep the question is, how much do you want this for us? And those two products have great engagement rates, but when we send out an email that's like just a campaign email, it has a little bit lower an engagement rate, but still a higher rate than most other industries across the board. We use a program called Emma. Has anybody heard of Emma in here? It's exactly like MailChimp, but I think it's a little bit better. in terms of its user interface. Emma makes it so that you don't have to have a programmer to send out emails. Anybody can send out a beautiful email. That's super important, making email as easy to use as like any other social platform. A couple of years ago, we were in Los Angeles doing a fundraiser, and our people that donate to Bitch are all different kinds of people. It's amazing. It's like an incredible feeling to be in that room. And the first thing that people wanted was to get together more often and to see each other and who was reading Bitch. And that's a question we've been trying to answer for the past couple of years because it takes enormous infrastructure on our end to be able to host those in-person conversations. But we are focused on doing something like that. And I think what we'd ultimately like is to have some sort of meetups or book clubs or something like that. We're not quite there yet, and I'm not quite sure exactly what that will look like. I think they need to be self-guided, but we would like to be able to provide resources for those people. Thanks, everybody, for being here.